She never saw her mother again.
By the age of 16, Claire was addicted to heroin and soon turned to prostitution to fund her habit.
Well, Claire believes her mother's actions when she was younger created a void in her life, which ultimately led to her downward spiral. And she joins us now with Denise Robertson. And good morning. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
So, can you explain those early years? What was it that led your mother to put you on that plane and send you off on your own?
I mean, I've never had any contact with her since, so I've never heard her side of the story. So I've been told that she actually was married to another man, and then she got pregnant with my father. So it was kind of like an accident.
And both your mother and the other man are black, and your father was white.
Yeah.
So your appearance became quite apparent that things weren't quite what were expected.
Yeah, exactly. But it took her until I was about 15 months old until she actually finally accepted that my skin colour wasn't going to change. And at that point, then she took me to my father.
So being put on that plane, what can you remember about being put on the plane?
Oh, I remember leaving, the air hostess taking my arm and leading me away, and I remember turning around and seeing my mum, who was crying, but I didn't understand what was going on.
Yeah.
So I got onto the plane, I was put onto the plane, and then I think the same stewardess came over and offered me some sweets, and I said no. And I just remember sitting in silence.
Wondering what is happening
where
to
you
me.
were going to. And
Yeah,
how
I
old were you
didn't
at this
have a
point?
clue. It was a week after my 5th birthday.
Okay, so young, old enough to remember, but too young to have any understanding of really where you were going to and what you were doing.
Yeah.
And you went to live with your father, and I guess the first milestone that you had to get over was the fact that you didn't speak any English, and he didn't speak the language which you spoke, which
Rosie. Yeah. No,
so that must have been tough.
Yeah, that was really tough. I mean, I don't actually remember that period of time. I think when I actually arrived in England, I kind of shut down a little bit. I can't remember having any particular acute emotions. I do remember I started wetting the bed again, probably due to stress. I also remember for the first maybe 3 or 4 years, I slept in my dad's room because I needed to be near him.
Well, you'd be terrified that once again this other very important person in your life was also going to abandon you.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I was actually quite obsessed with it. I became quite obsessed with my father and pleasing him. So at school, I mean, initially I didn't speak English, but I had I went to school and I had a tutor who taught me English, and you know.
But as you got older, this you say you had an obsession with being with your father. You had to be because you didn't want to be on your own, left alone, being deserted by one adult. But that desertion by your mother, when she put you on that plane, that festered, didn't it? That turned into,
it
as you
became
say,
a secret. It became a secret. I didn't want to talk about my mother because I didn't want to feel like I was being disloyal to my father. But I was completely bewildered as to what had happened. Where had she gone? My father and I never talked about her. We still haven't really talked about her. Even now. I mean, I know her name. I've guessed her age.
You don't know whether she's still alive.
I don't. No, I don't know.
So when you got to your teenage years, that's when it started off by just nicking a bit of alcohol from your dad's cupboard and then going, school friends, doing what teenagers do. But it was when you met a guy, we've changed his name, but a guy who we're going to call Stephen. And it was him that sort of introduced you to, I guess, a way to forget the pain.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that I was searching for a way to actually feel more comfortable, more at ease with myself. So I initially went looking for it. So I found it in alcohol. And then as a result of that, I mean, initially I felt that alcohol had saved me. It was a relief, it made me feel more comfortable. I wasn't as obsessive about my father's whereabouts. I wasn't. I just felt more at ease being
Well,
myself.
it progressed and
progressed.
became so very much more serious, as we hinted at in the introduction, because you rebelled against your father. He couldn't understand what was going on and why it was
hellish for him.
and then you end up in a squat in London, and then the drugs start and the drugs progress, and then you've got that sort of, you describe it as the warm glow of heroin, and eventually this is a habit that has to be funded. So you find yourself pretty much alone because he leaves you. This is the Stephen, and so here you are, having to fund a very expensive habit, having to escape this horror in your mind that is getting worse and worse and worse. And so how did you turn to prostitution?
Well, initially the heroin, that part of my life, and Stephen, and that side of things, I went into a rehabilitation centre. So I did that. I came out, but nothing had really changed whilst I was in there. And then I started again, and this time I decided that if I stayed away from heroin, stayed away from tranquilizers, I'd be okay. So I got into cocaine, and that's where the prostitution started, because that became a very expensive habit. Yeah, and for somebody like me, I understand that some people can maybe use it here and there, but I just seem to have one of those natures, or I don't know what it is, that it's excessive. It was excessive.
You say there was the hatred, because you describe yourself as being broken. There was a hatred of the men. There was this hatred of yourself. There was a hatred of your mother. This is a real sort of burning, angry seed, isn't it?
An angry woman. Just, I think the majority of the hatred was on me, and I think that I actually look at drug addiction as being a kind of self-harm. It's very abusive. The behaviours that come with addiction. I mean, it's not it's not uncommon for a woman who becomes addicted to drugs to sell her body. Less risk than a lot of men maybe do other types of crime.
But how did you get from that the bottom of the well to now?
I went into rehab